Hey, nappy friend, welcome back to our nappy little club. You're home now, and we saved your spot. Tonight we are traveling back in time, not as kings or conquerors, but as something far more essential and far more overlooked. We're heading to Renaissance Florence, to a place filled with the scent of genius and turpentine, a place of creation and endless, endless chores. You will become an apprentice in the workshop of the great Leonardo da Vinci. The hours are terrible, the pay is non-existent, and you'll probably handle more toxic materials than a modern-day chemist. But here, in this space, you're perfectly safe and deeply relaxed. So before your eyelids get too heavy, if you genuinely enjoy what I do here, tap that like button and subscribe to keep our sleepy adventures coming. After all, nobody wants to miss out on history, right? We love to know where our stories are reaching, so feel free to leave a comment telling us where in the world you're listening from and what time it is for you. It connects our little global village of sleepers. So, dim your lights, tune into the soft, comforting fan hum, and ease gently into tonight's journey. Because you're now officially in Nappy Community. You're not just listening, you're an essential part of our Nappy family, where every night is soothing, special, and yours. You're safe, valued, and always welcome. The first thing you're aware of is not light, but smell. A complex perfume that has soaked into the very wool of your thin blanket, into the straw of your mattress, and, you suspect, into your very soul. It's the sharp, clean scent of turpentine, the rich, nutty aroma of linseed oil, and the faint, dusty sweetness of old wood. Beneath it all is the lingering ghost of yesterday's simple dinner, stale bread and watered wine. You are Giovanni, and this is your world. You open your eyes. The light that filters through the high, grimy window of the bottega is a soft, forgiving gray. It hasn't yet decided to be morning. This is the quietest time, the precious interstitial moment between the last sleeping breath of the night and the first waking roar of Florence. From your simple cot in the corner, the workshop is a landscape of slumbering shapes and shadows. Easels stand like skeletal sentinels. Unfinished panels lean against walls, their ghostly white gesso surfaces seeming to faintly glow in the dimness. A clay model of a horse, shrouded in damp cloths to keep it from cracking, looks like a small, lumpy mountain. You swing your legs out of bed, your bare feet meeting the cold, splintery floorboards. There is no time to waste. The master, Leonardo, values industry, and being the first to rise is one of the few ways to distinguish yourself among the dozen other boys who share this space. Your first task is always the same. It is the foundation upon which the entire day's art will be built. You take up the broom, its wooden handle worn smooth and familiar in your hands. You begin your slow, methodical circuit of the room. The sound is a gentle, rhythmic shh of the bristles, a sound that could almost lull you back to sleep, but you are focused. Sweeping this floor is not a simple chore. It is an act of historical archaeology. With each pass, you gather the detritus of yesterday's genius. Fine, pale dust from the poplar panel another apprentice was sanding, dark, gritty flecks of charcoal from the master's frantic preparatory sketches, crumbs of dried clay, and most importantly, the fine colored dust of the pigments. A faint yellow haze near the grinding table warns of orpiment, a beautiful but toxic arsenic sulfide. You know to sweep it gently, to not inhale the little cloud it creates. A soft grayish powder is lead white, another beautiful poison that gives paintings their brilliant highlights. You are an artist in training, a future master perhaps, with dreams of painting popes and princes. But for now, your primary medium is dust. This is the reality of the bottega system, the well-established method for turning boys into masters. You traded years of your life, your labor, and your freedom for the chance to learn at the feet of a great man. Your contract signed by your father makes you little more than property of the workshop. But it is a gilded cage. As you sweep near the master's personal workspace, you move with extra care. Here, the floor is a minefield of discarded papers, filled with sketches and mirrored writing. You carefully sweep around a small, intricate cage made of wicker and wire. Inside, a small finch sits quietly. The master had bought it in the market yesterday, along with a dozen others. Not for study, not this time. He simply opened their cages in the middle of the piazza and watched, a soft, strange smile on his face as they flew away. This one he kept, claiming he wanted to understand the mechanics of its wing joints. This small act of gentleness is a strange contrast to the ambitious, sometimes ruthless man he needs to be to survive in the city. You ponder this as you work. Historians a half millennium from now will debate the precise layout and daily operations of the great Florentine workshops, like that of Verrocchio, where the master himself learned. They will argue about the division of labor, about the curriculum. You smile a little. You wonder if the great Verrocchio's workshop was this beautifully chaotic, or if the master brought this particular brand of creative messiness with him. You suspect the latter. Your broom coaxes the last of the dust into a neat pile. For a brief, fleeting moment, the workshop floor is clean. It is a blank canvas, ready for the day's art to begin. Your work is done, for now. The morning passes in a flurry of activity that is both structured and utterly unpredictable, the typical rhythm of the workshop. You run errands through the bustling Florentine streets, dodging merchants' carts and picking up supplies. Eggs from a farmer's wife to be used for tempera paint, a new bundle of charcoal sticks, a roll of parchment. You assist a senior apprentice in stretching a large canvas onto its wooden frame, the rhythmic sound of the hammer and tacks a steady beat against the city's hum. But after the midday meal, a simple affair of bread, cheese, and olives eaten. Standing up, the master himself approaches you. He doesn't speak, not at first. He simply studies your hands, turning them over as if they were a pair of strange new tools. Then he nods, a quick, sharp gesture, and points to a heavy wooden box kept in a locked cupboard. Your heart gives a little flutter. You know what this means. You are being trusted with the blue. Not the common cheap azurite or the simple indigo, dye. You are being trusted with the soul of the sky itself, lapis lazuli. A senior apprentice, with a look that's half envy and half warning, places a porphyry slab on a sturdy table in the corner. It is a thick, reddish stone, worn smooth in the center from centuries of use. He hands you a heavy glass Mueller, a pestle shaped like a mushroom, its bottom perfectly flat and slightly rough. And then he opens the box. Inside, nestled on a bed of raw wool, are several rocks. They are not much to look at first, a dull, deep blue mottled with gray and a fool's gold shimmer of pyrite. But you know their true worth. These stones have traveled further than you ever will, journeying across deserts and seas from the remote mountains of Afghanistan, passed from merchant to merchant along the Silk Road. They cost more, ounce for ounce, than gold. The cost of the powder you are about to create is carefully stipulated in the contract for the new altarpiece for the Santissima Annunziata. It is destined for the Virgin's robes, and its brilliance is a direct reflection of the patron's piety and his wealth. Your first task is to break the stones. You place one on a hard surface, cover it with a thick cloth, and strike it sharply with a hammer. The sound is a dull, definitive crack. You carefully gather the smaller, pea-sized fragments. Now the real work begins. You place a small handful of the fragments onto the center of the porphyry slab. You grip the glass muller with both hands, placing it on top of the stones. You lean into it, using your body weight, and begin to move it in a slow, circular motion. The sound starts as a harsh, gritty cracking, the sound of tiny rocks resisting. But as you work, the rhythm becomes smoother, a continuous sandy It is a sound that sinks into your bones, a sound you will hear in your sleep. Your shoulders begin to burn, your wrists ache, but you cannot stop. The master demands a powder as fine as sifted flour, with no grit or imperfection. As you grind, your mind drifts. You're not just crushing a rock, you're releasing a color. With every rotation, the dull blue of the stone transforms into a vibrant, electric ultramarine. It is the most perfect blue in existence, the color of twilight on a clear day, the color of divinity. You fall into a trance, the world shrinking to the circle of your arms, the slab, and the growing pile of brilliant dust. This repetitive hypnotic labor is a core truth of the Renaissance studio. Behind every ethereal angel's wing, behind every serene Madonna's robe are hours upon hours of this. A boy, an aching back, and a stone being slowly turned into light. You know this is only the first stage. Later, a more experienced apprentice will take your precious powder and perform the master's strange alchemy. It's a process historians will later call the pasta method, a bizarre but brilliant technique Leonardo refined. They will mix your blue powder into a doughy ball of beeswax, pine resin, and linseed oil. Then this waxy, blue-black dough will be kneaded in a bowl of warm, weak lye water. It seems like madness, like a recipe from a witch's kitchen. But as the dough is worked, the purest, finest particles of ultramarine are released from the rock's impurities and sink to the bottom of the bowl, creating a blue so pure it seems to vibrate with its own energy. You wonder about the complex color theories the master sometimes lectures on, the way he insists that this particular shade of blue will evoke a specific kind of contemplative piety, a different feeling entirely from the celebratory red of a saint's robe next to it. Scholars will one day debate the precise symbolic meaning of these color choices, but for you, the meaning is simple. It is the color of an entire afternoon of sweat and aching muscles. You find yourself holding your breath, worried that one clumsy move, one misplaced sneeze, could send a small fortune of blue dust scattering across the floor, earning you a week of only sweeping. But slowly, painstakingly, the work is done. You carefully scrape the precious powder into a small, clean pot, your contribution to the Virgin's heavenly grace now complete. The pot of precious blue powder is now stored away, its fate in the hands of the senior apprentices and their strange wax dough. Your life in the bottega is a pendulum swinging between tasks of immense delicacy and those of brute, repetitive labor. Today, you swing back towards patience. Your new assignment is not about color, but its absolute absence. It is about creating the perfect beginning. Your canvas, in this era before canvas is common, is a thick, beautiful panel of poplar, wood, its grain a pale, creamy yellow, its surface sanded smooth by another boy last week. It smells faintly of forest and sawdust, a clean, organic scent. But it is not ready, not even close. Before the master can lay down a single stroke of charcoal, the wood must be tamed. It must be sealed, perfected, turned into a surface worthy of his genius. Your first step is to prepare the size. This is a task for the nose as much as the hands. You are sent to the large pot at the back of the workshop where scraps of rabbit skin have been simmering for hours. The result is a gelatinous, amber-colored liquid that smells faintly animalistic and savory. It's not an unpleasant smell, but it is a primitive one. This rabbit skin glue is the lifeblood of the studio, used for everything from binding pigments to sealing panels. You carry a small pot of the warm liquid size over to your workbench. Using a wide, soft brush, you begin to coat the poplar panel. The wood drinks the glue thirstily, its color darkening slightly. You must work quickly and evenly, ensuring no part of the surface is left untouched. This layer of size is a barrier, a truce negotiated between the living, breathing wood and the layers of gesso to come. Without it, the wood would draw the moisture from the gesso, causing the final painting to crack and flake. within a generation. Your work ensures a small piece of the master's soul will survive for centuries. Once the size is dry, the true test of your patience begins, the application of the gesso. You have mixed it yourself, a fine snowy powder of gypsum, blended with the warm rabbit skin glue until it becomes a smooth, white, creamy liquid, the consistency of heavy cream. This is gesso sottle, the fine gesso for the upper layers. You dip your brush and apply the first coat to the panel. The motion is long, steady, and even from one edge to the other. You must work without leaving brush strokes. Then you wait. You watch as the wet, milky white slowly dries to a chalky, matte finish. And then you do it again, and again, and again. Each layer is applied at a right angle to the one before it, a cross-hatching of white that slowly builds up the surface. Some panels require 8 layers. Others, destined for a work of great importance, might receive 12 or more. This is the hidden labor that no patron ever sees, the foundation of every masterpiece. And as you work, the central anxiety of serving Leonardo da Vinci begins to creep into your mind. You are pouring hours, no, days of your young life into creating this flawless, luminous, ivory-smooth surface. The physical work is demanding, but the psychological weight is heavier, because you know that the fate of this perfect panel is utterly unpredictable. Tomorrow, the master might walk in, his eyes alight, with a new vision for a Madonna and Child, and he might seize the panel and begin sketching with a feverish intensity. That is the dream. But there is another, more likely possibility. The master's mind is not a peaceful kingdom. It is a chaotic battlefield of warring passions. He is, as you have come to realize, easily bored. Tomorrow, he might receive a letter from the Duke of Milan and become consumed with designing a new type of canal lock. Or he might see a man with a particularly interesting nose in the piazza and spend the next week filling a notebook with grotesque caricatures. Or most galling of all, he might simply become obsessed with a new engineering problem or a mathematical theory, and the entire workshop will be ignored for a month. You've seen it happen. You've seen perfectly prepared panels, just like this one, become canvases for the master's experiments in paint chemistry. New formulas for oil or varnish that bubble and crack within days. His disastrous experiments on the wall of the Santa Maria delle Grazie for the Last Supper are already a cautionary tale whispered among the apprentices. He painted on a dry wall, not in true fresco, and his creation began to decay before it was even finished. So as you apply the 8th and final layer of gesso, and then begin the painstaking process of scraping it level and polishing it to a sublime smoothness with blocks of charcoal, you are filled with both pride and a deep sense of futility. You are a participant in the great artistic debates of the age without even knowing it. Scholars of the future will endlessly discuss the workshop of versus the hand of the master, trying to discern your work from his. You dream of the day you might be allowed to paint a small patch of sky in the corner of one of his works. But for now, you create the sky itself, a perfect white void. The panel is finished. It gleams with a soft internal light, a perfect thing born of your labor. It leans against the wall, a blank promise, waiting for a genius who may or may not ever arrive. For weeks, a quiet and productive rhythm has settled over the bottega. Your life has found its groove, a predictable cycle of sweeping, grinding, sizing, and the endless, hopeful practice of drawing. You have become adept at copying the master's sketches, the subtle folds of a saint's robe, the gnarled knuckles of an old man's hand, the impossible anatomy of a dragon he doodled in a moment of fancy. The workshop hums with the soft scratching of charcoal on parchment, the low murmur of apprentices discussing their tasks, and the steady, comforting sounds of Florence filtering up from the street. It is a peaceful, almost monastic existence dedicated to the slow and steady pursuit of beauty. And then the door opens, and the peace is broken forever. The master enters, and as always, a respectful hush falls over the room. But he is not alone. Peeking out from behind his velvet doublet is a boy, perhaps 10 years of age. He is, you notice immediately, almost unnaturally beautiful. A cascade of dark, tight curls frames a face that could belong to one of the cherubs in a Perugino painting. His eyes are large and dark, but they lack a cherub's innocence. They dart around the room, taking in every detail with a startling, assessing intelligence. He is not awestruck. He is not timid. He looks, you think, like a cat entering a room full of mice. The master introduces him with a wave of his hand. This is Gian Giacomo Caprotti from Moreno. He will be joining us. See that he is put to work. And with that, Leonardo retreats to his private workspace, leaving the boy standing in the middle of the floor. An older apprentice, a serious young man named Marco, takes charge. He assigns the newcomer a simple task, sorting brushes by size and quality, a job given to all new boys to test their attentiveness. You watch the boy, Gian Giacomo, from your own workbench. He seems to be working diligently, his small hands flitting among the bristles, but his eyes are not on his task. They are scanning the workshop, cataloging its contents. You see his gaze linger on the pot of expensive crimson pigment, on a silver locket worn by another boy, and finally, on Marco's workstation. Marco, satisfied the new boy is occupied, turns his back to retrieve something from a high shelf. On his table, among his personal tools, lies a silver point stylus. It is a beautiful, valuable instrument, a thin rod of pure silver set in an ivory. Handle used for creating drawings of exquisite delicacy. It is Marco's most prized possession. It happens so fast you almost disbelieve your own eyes. With a liquid grace that is almost silent, Gian Giacomo glides away from the brushes. His small hand darts out as quick as a lizard's tongue, and the silver point stylus vanishes into the folds of his simple tunic. He is back at his station, sorting brushes an instant before Marco turns around. His face is a mask of perfect, angelic innocence. You are stunned into silence. You and the half-dozen other apprentices are a sort of family bound by the strict rules of the bottega and a shared reverence for the master. You work together, eat together, sleep in the same room. Stealing is the ultimate transgression, and this boy has done it on his very first day. The inevitable discovery comes an hour later. Marco reaches for his stylus and finds it gone. Panic, then accusation, fills the air. The other boys empty their pockets, proclaiming their innocence. All eyes inevitably fall on the newcomer. Gian Giacomo meets their stares with his wide, dark eyes, a picture of wounded virtue. He denies everything. But the senior apprentice is firm. A quick search of the boy's tunic reveals the ivory and silver stylus. The workshop holds its breath. The punishment for theft is severe, a beating or instant dismissal and disgrace. Marco drags the boy before the master, who has emerged to investigate the commotion. Leonardo looks down at the boy who stands before him, defiant and unrepentant. He listens to Marco's furious explanation. You expect a thunderous explosion of anger. Instead, something strange happens. A flicker of something that looks almost like amusement crosses the master's face. He looks at the beautiful, defiant boy, and a slow smile spreads across his lips. A little devil, this one, he murmurs, more to himself than to anyone else. Un diavoletto. He turns to the boy. Salai, he says, christening him with his new name. You will be called Salai. He does not beat him. He does not dismiss him. He simply takes the stylus, returns it to a speechless Marco, and tells everyone to get back to work. And in that moment, you understand that the rules have changed. Salai, the little devil, has arrived, and the quiet, orderly world of the bottega has been turned upside down. And you and scholars for centuries to come are left to wonder at the nature of this strange affection the master shows for his beautiful, infuriating new charge. Sikir, the months following Salai's arrival bleed into one another, each day marked by some new minor act of chaos. The little devil, as he is now universally known, has made the workshop his personal kingdom. He is a whirlwind of infuriating energy. You come to expect your charcoal sticks to be mysteriously broken, your carefully mixed pot of ochre to have a thumbprint in it, or the salt cellar at dinner to be filled with sugar. He learns to mimic the haughty posture of a wealthy patron, with devastating accuracy, sending the other apprentices into fits of stifled laughter the moment the patron leaves. He is, you admit to yourself in the quiet of your cot at night, a constant irritation. But the workshop, once a sanctuary of quiet focus, is undeniably less dull. The strangest part is the master's continued indulgence. Leonardo documents Salai's petty crimes in his notebooks with the meticulousness of a court scribe, yet the punishments are laughably light: a scolding, a denied dessert, a theatrical sigh of exasperation. This creates an invisible wall. In the bottega, there is Salai, and then there is everyone else. You and the other boys, Marco, Francesco, Boltrafio, continue your slow, honorable path. You learn the geometry of perspective, the chemistry of pigments, the patient art of silver point. You toil, you obey. You dream of the day the master will allow you to paint a small patch of drapery or a distant tree in the background of a major commission. You believe that skill, diligence, and loyalty are the currency that will buy you a future. Then one afternoon, the currency changes. The master is working on a new commission, a painting of the Virgin and Child with St. Anne. He has hired a professional model, a weathered man with a patient face, to pose for the figure of the saint. But something is wrong. Leonardo is agitated. He paces, he mutters, he makes a sketch, and immediately rubs it out with breadcrumbs. No, no, he says to the room at large. The expression, it lacks divinity, it lacks grace. In his frustration, his eyes scan the workshop and land on Salai, who is lounging in a corner idly tormenting a fly. You, the master commands, his voice sharp. Salai, stop that, come here. A nervous silence falls. Salai saunters over, a look of mock innocence on his face. The other apprentices, you included, stop your work. You all watch, a mixture of curiosity and resentment brewing in your chests. You have all posed for the master before, a hand here, a foot there, the back of a head. It is part of the training. But this is different. He is being considered for a face, for an expression that must convey the holy. The master positions him, tilting his chin with his long fingers, brushing the dark curls from his forehead. Look, towards the light, Leonardo instructs, his voice suddenly soft. Think of a secret you are pleased to keep. And then it happens, a transformation. The mischievous, impish boy vanishes under the master's intense, analytical gaze. Salai produces a look of breathtaking ambiguity. A faint, subtle smile plays on his lips, a look that is at once serene and knowing, innocent and deeply wise. It is captivating. It's a quality the courtiers are starting to call sprezzatura, a kind of studied, effortless grace that makes difficult things look easy. You and the others practice for hours to capture a single, true emotion in a drawing. Salai simply conjures it from thin air. The master lets out a soft breath. He is utterly mesmerized. He snatches up a piece of charcoal and begins to sketch with a speed and ferocity you have seldom seen. The scratch of his charcoal on the rough paper is the only sound in the room. In that moment, Salai is promoted. He is no longer just the thieving mascot of the workshop. He is a muse. From that day on, he is called to pose constantly. His androgynous, curly-haired features begin to appear everywhere as a youthful St. John the Baptist, his finger pointing enigmatically towards the heavens as a beautiful winged angel, as countless cherubs and background figures. The jealousy among the other apprentices is a thick, bitter thing. You talk about it in hushed tones at night. It is an injustice. It upends the natural order of the bottega. Whispers and black humor become your only outlet. One evening, as you watch Salai posing yet again, his face illuminated by candlelight, a senior apprentice leans over to you and mutters a joke that is almost blasphemous. Be careful, Giovanni, or one day the master will put him in a dress and call him Lisa. The comment hangs in the air, a strange and unsettling prophecy. You look at Salai's faint, mysterious smile, and for the first time you see its limitless and perhaps dangerous potential. The workshop settles into a deceptive quiet as the sun sets, its last orange rays replaced by the soft, flickering dance of oil lamps. The day's work is done. Most of the other apprentices, exhausted from their labors, have already retreated to their cots, their soft snores providing a gentle rhythm to the evening. Your final task for the day is a quiet one, to bank the fire in the small hearth, ensuring a bed of warm embers will survive until morning to ward off the Florentine night chill. It's a task you enjoy, a moment of peace that allows you to be an unseen observer in the master's world. Tonight, that world is more puzzling than ever. In the center of the room, Leonardo sits at his large oak desk, a solitary island in a pool of warm candlelight. He is not sketching or dissecting, he is writing. His head is bent in concentration, his long hair falling across his shoulders. He writes, as always, in his peculiar fashion, backwards from right to left, a script that looks like arcane scribbles to the uninitiated. You have, through months of observation, learned to decipher this mirrored code, a skill you keep to yourself. From your position by the hearth, you can just make out the words taking shape under his pen. He is writing about Salai. But this is not a note of praise. His brow is furrowed, his mouth set in a thin line of disapproval. You can read the words as they flow from his quill: ladro, bugiardo, ostinato, Kyoto. Thief, liar, stubborn, glutton. It is a meticulous, damning ledger of Salai's sins from the past week. You watch, fascinated, as he documents it all. He notes that Salai stole a silver point stylus again. He calculates the cost of a piece of fine Venetian glass the boy broke through carelessness. He laments that Salai secretly ate the candied figs that were a gift from a wealthy patron. The list goes on. Each transgression is noted with the precision of an accountant. This, you think, is it. The master's legendary patience has finally run out. Salai's reign of charming terror is over. Surely a reckoning is coming. You feel a small, guilty thrill of anticipation, as if summoned by the master's thoughts. Salai himself emerges from the shadows of the sleeping area. He is not contrite. He is not fearful. He yawns, stretches like a cat, and saunters over to the master's desk. He leans against it with a casual familiarity that still makes you and the other apprentices bristle. He complains, his voice a theatrical pout, that his shoes are worn through and pinch his feet. He points to the scuffed leather, a picture of exaggerated suffering. You hold your breath, waiting for the explosion. The master has just finished writing a veritable indictment of the boy's character. This is the moment the hammer will fall. But it doesn't. Leonardo puts down his pen, the ink still wet on the damning words. He leans back and looks at Salai, and the sternness in his face dissolves. It is replaced by a look of profound, weary affection. He lets out a long, slow sigh, a sound that holds all the frustration and all the fondness of their entire relationship. "Still growing, are you?" the master asks softly. Without another word, he reaches into a heavy wooden chest beside his desk, a chest where he keeps the workshop's funds. He retrieves a small, heavy purse that clinks with the sound of silver coins. He tosses it to Salai. "Go to the cobbler. In the morning," Leonardo says, his voice resigned. "Buy the pair you were admiring last week, the ones with the silver buckles. Salai catches the purse, his pout vanishing, replaced by a grin of pure, unadulterated triumph. He doesn't say thank you. He doesn't promise to be better. He simply clutches his prize and disappears back into the darkness, leaving you in stunned silence. You are left alone in the quiet, the master now staring into the middle distance, lost in thought. You look at the notebook with its secret mirrored script detailing Salai's faults. You look at the empty space where the boy just stood, the ghost of his triumphant smile still hanging in the air. The two things do not compute. They cannot exist in the same reality, yet they do. It is a riddle wrapped in an enigma. You are witnessing a dynamic that you cannot name. It is not father and son, not master and servant. It is something else, entirely. A complex bond of art, affection, and exasperation that scholars and biographers will puzzle over for the next 500 years. You finish with the fire, the warmth doing little to dispel the chill of the mystery. You realize tonight that there are two sets of rules in this workshop: the clear, logical rules of perspective and pigment for boys like you, and the chaotic, contradictory, and invisible rules that govern the master's heart, rules that seem to apply only to Salai. Years have passed. You are no longer the new boy, wide-eyed and terrified of making a mistake. You are a young man now, a trusted member of the Bottega's inner circle. Your hands, once soft, are now stained with pigment and calloused from the muller and the polishing stone. You have swept enough dust to fill a cathedral and prepared enough panels to build a small house. Salai's chaotic presence has become a permanent feature of the workshop, like the smell of turpentine or the master's habit of humming off-key. His favor with Leonardo is a settled, if still baffling, fact of life. But something in your own relationship with the master has deepened. He has seen your patience, your diligence, your quiet loyalty. And so one rain-slicked afternoon, when the gray light of Florence is particularly soft, he decides you are ready. He calls you not to the grinding slab or the woodpile, but to his own easel. On it rests a portrait in progress, the face of a Florentine merchant's wife. It is already beautiful, but it lacks life. It is an exquisite drawing, but it does not yet breathe. The other apprentices sense the gravity of the moment and keep their distance, casting curious, envious glances. This is not a group lesson. This is an initiation. Giovanni, the master says, his voice low and serious. The others paint lines. They paint objects. We do not. We paint the air that surrounds the objects. We paint the space between things. That is where truth lies. He gestures towards the corner of the room, where the light from the window surrenders to the deep shadows of the workshop. Show me the line that separates the shadow from the wall, he challenges. You look and you understand. There is no line. There is only a soft, gradual transition, a blending, a haze. Nature does not draw lines, he says, a rare, brilliant smile touching his lips. So why should we? This is the beginning of your lesson in his most protected, most revolutionary secret, sfumato. The word itself means to vanish, to evaporate, like smoke. He shows you his palette. It is not loaded with thick, rich color. Instead, there are small dabs of pigment swimming in pools of glistening golden linseed oil. He has thinned the paint into a translucent glaze, a colored breath. The medium has a strange, sweet, resinous smell, and you wonder what secret oils or varnishes he has added to the mixture, a recipe scholars will debate for centuries. He hands you a soft, bristled brush. Your hand, to your shame, is trembling, slightly. The corner of her mouth, he instructs, pointing to the portrait. It is too sharp. It is a line, not a smile. Make it vanish. He guides your hand. The technique is counterintuitive. You are not adding paint so much as adding atmosphere. You apply a whisper-thin layer of the brownish glaze, so thin it is almost invisible. Then, with a clean, dry brush, and even the side of your finger, you immediately begin to soften the edge, blending it into the flesh tone beneath until the transition is seamless. The hard line is gone, replaced by a soft, shadowy suggestion. Good, the master murmurs. Now, we wait for it to dry completely, and tomorrow we will do it again, and the day after, and perhaps 30 more times after that. You stare at the subtle effect, and you finally understand. This is not painting. This is alchemy. You are not an artist. You are a sorcerer, layering spells of light and shadow. He begins to speak of his theories on optics, connecting the technique to his scientific observations. He explains how moisture and dust in the air, the very air you are breathing, soften the appearance of distant mountains, blurring their edges, a phenomenon he is trying to replicate on this flat wooden panel. You realize he is not just teaching you an artistic trick, he is teaching you a new way to see the world, a scientific principle of perception. You apply another layer to the edge of the woman's veil where it meets her cheek. It is a slow, meditative, hypnotic process. You feel a profound connection to the master, a sense of being welcomed into the deepest sanctum of his mind. In this moment, your years of resentment towards Salai and his unearned favor seem to melt away. Salai may have the master's affection, his purse, his indulgence, but you, in the quiet of this rainy afternoon, are being trusted with his soul. The master steps back, studies your work, and gives a single sharp nod of approval. That simple gesture is worth more to you than all the silver-buckled shoes in Florence. The trust the master placed in you during the lesson of sfumato was a seed. Tonight, it blooms into something far more dangerous, something that binds you to him not just with knowledge, but with a shared, prosecutable secret. The night is deep and starless, the kind of night where Florence feels like it has sunk to the bottom of a cold, black ocean. The workshop is silent, the breathing of the other apprentices a soft, unified rhythm. You are sound asleep when a hand gently shakes your shoulder. You open your eyes to see the master's silhouette against the faint moonlight from the window. He puts a single, long finger to his lips, a silent command for absolute quiet. Your heart begins to pound, a slow, heavy drum against your ribs. He beckons you to follow. You slip out of your cot, your bare feet silent on the cold floorboards. You do not head towards the main studio. Instead, he leads you to a small, windowless storage room at the very back of the bottega, a room whose door is almost always locked, a room you have never been inside. He produces a key, turns the lock with a soft, metallic click, and gestures for you to enter. The air that meets you is cold and smells strange. It's a sharp, sterile, vaguely pickling odor, an acrid scent that stings the back of your throat. Leonardo lights a single tallow candle, and the small room flickers into existence. It is mostly empty, save for a sturdy table in the center. On the table, lying on a thick piece of oilcloth, is a human arm. A wave of cold dread washes over you, so intense your knees feel weak. It is a severed arm from the shoulder to the tips of the fingers. Its skin is pale and waxy. Your mind reels. This is blasphemy. This is a desecration of God's creation, a defilement of a temple meant to be whole for the resurrection. Your first instinct is to run, to flee back to the safety of your cot and pretend this is a nightmare. But you are frozen in place by the master's gaze. He is watching you, not the arm. His expression is calm, intense, and analytical. He is gauging your reaction, testing your nerve. You realize with a sickening certainty that this is why you were chosen over the others, even over Salai. Because the master knows you can be silent. You swallow hard, forcing down the bile in your throat, and give a short, jerky nod. It is enough. He turns his attention to the table. He unrolls a cloth bundle, revealing a set of instruments that make your stomach clench. They are not the familiar tools of an artist. They're fine, wickedly sharp knives of varying sizes, sharp hooks, delicate probes, and fine-toothed saws. They are the tools of a surgeon or a butcher. The ancient Greeks and Romans understood this, the master whispers, his voice a low hum. in the silent room. They knew that to depict the body, you must first understand it. We have forgotten their wisdom. We paint skin, not what lies beneath. We paint lies, Giovanni. He picks up a small, sharp scalpel. Tonight, we paint the truth. He makes the first long, precise incision down the length of the forearm. You hold the candle closer, your hand shaking so much that the shadows dance wildly on the walls. He works with a terrifying calm, a detached focus that is more unnerving than any mad passion could be. He is not a ghoul. He is a scholar, a geographer, charting an undiscovered country. Look, he murmurs, using a probe to lift a pale, glistening tendon. This is what pulls the finger. Feel its strength. He guides your hand until you touch it with the tip of a probe. It is incredibly strong, like a cord of silk rope. He reveals the muscles, peeling them back layer by layer, explaining how they work in concert. This is the musculodeltoid, he says, pointing to the shoulder. See the direction of the fibers? This is what allows a saint to raise his arm in blessing. We cannot paint that blessing if we do not understand this machine. He pauses, looking at the arrangement of bones in the wrist. It is so similar to the foreleg of the horse I studied last winter, he muses, a comment that reveals the sheer breadth of his obsessive quest for knowledge. You wonder if this is for art anymore. The level of detail he seeks, the intricate path of a tiny nerve he carefully traces, could never be seen in a painting. This is a hunger for knowledge for its own sake, a pure and perhaps dangerous curiosity that will fuel academic debates for centuries. You are a witness to a secret that is deeper than art, a shared transgression that binds you to him with a thread of cold, terrifying awe. He covers the arm with its cloth, and you stumble back to your bed, the smell of formaldehyde in your nostrils, and the image of God's hidden architecture burned forever behind your eyes. The memory of the dissection clings to you for days. It haunts your dreams and colors your waking hours. You find yourself staring at the hands of the baker as he gives you your morning loaf, imagining the intricate dance of the flexor tendons beneath his skin. The world has become a layered, more complex place, and you feel set apart by the terrible and wonderful knowledge you now carry. In an attempt to exorcise the images from your mind, you try to capture them on paper. During a quiet afternoon, lull when the master is away consulting with the Duke's engineers and Salai is for once nowhere to be seen, you sit at your workbench. You try to sketch the musculature of the arm from memory, but your efforts are clumsy, lifeless. Your drawings are crude maps of a country you have only briefly visited. Frustration gnaws at you. Your eyes drift over to the master's personal desk. It is usually a fortress of organized chaos, a place you are forbidden to approach. But today, in his haste to leave, he has left one of his notebooks open. It lies there, a silent invitation. These books are his most private possessions, his second brain. To even look at one feels like a profound violation. But your artistic frustration and a burning, insatiable curiosity, a new trait you fear you've caught from the master himself, overpowers your sense of propriety. You tell yourself you are just seeking a more accurate reference for your drawing. You rise and walk silently across the workshop, your heart thumping a nervous rhythm against your ribs. You don't dare touch it. You simply lean over the desk, your hands braced on the wood, and look down upon the open page. The first thing that strikes you is the script. You are used to seeing snippets of the master's strange right-to-left mirror writing, but to see an entire codex filled with it is deeply unsettling. It looks like a language for angels or demons, a code that actively resists understanding. But it is the drawings, not the words, that make the air leave your lungs in a silent rush. On the left-hand page are the anatomical studies you were hoping to see. A drawing of the human heart, depicted with an accuracy no one else in the world possesses. He has drawn it as if it were made of glass, showing the chambers, the valves, the great vessels. with notes scribbled in the margins about the flow of blood. But it is the facing page that shatters your understanding of the world. It is a detailed, meticulous, and utterly impossible diagram. It is a design for a flying machine. You stare, utterly mesmerized. It is not a fanciful drawing of a man with feathered wings. It is an engineering blueprint. It has wings like a giant bat, a framework of light wood and oiled silk, with a system of cranks and pulleys that would allow a man lying prone in the center to power them. Beside it are smaller sketches, a study of a bird's wing in motion, calculations about lift and weight, and another, even stranger device, shaped like a giant screw, designed to bite into the air and lift a man straight up. You feel a wave of vertigo, as if the floor has dropped away from beneath you, and there is more. You crane your neck to see another page, and on it is a drawing of a monstrous armored vehicle shaped like a tortoise shell, bristling with cannons on all sides, propelled by an internal system of gears to be turned by men, a rolling fortress, a weapon of unimaginable power. You see a page filled with studies on the movement of water, the way it swirls and eddies around a stone in a stream, drawn with a delicate beauty that seems completely at odds with the war machine on the page next to it. That juxtaposition is perhaps the most terrifying thing of all. This is not the mind of a painter. This is the mind of a god or a madman, a being who sees the secret mechanics of everything, from the petals of a flower to the sinews of a soldier, and seeks to master them all. You are no longer wondering if his mirror script is for secrecy. It must be. These ideas, if revealed, would not be celebrated. They would be seen as witchcraft, as dangerous, heretical madness. You realize you are looking at a mind that does not belong in your time. The dissection showed you the hidden reality of the human body, but this notebook reveals the hidden reality of a soul centuries ahead of its time. Suddenly, you hear the workshop door creak open. You dart back to your station, your heart hammering. Just as Salai strolls in, whistling, you pick up your charcoal, but your hand is shaking too much to draw. The world outside the workshop now seems impossibly slow and primitive compared to the terrifying, brilliant future you just glimpsed in the Master's Private Codex. The day finally arrives. A painting that has consumed the workshop for the better part of a year is finished. It is the portrait of Cecilia Gallerani, the young and clever mistress of the Duke, Ludovico Sforza. You have watched it evolve from a charcoal sketch on a white gesso panel to this breathtaking finished object. You know every layer of glaze on her skin, the precise number of hairs on the white ermine she cradles in her arms, the deep knowing intelligence in her eyes. Now its life in the workshop is over. It belongs to the court. The master, after a final long inspection, gives his nod of approval. He entrusts the monumental task of its delivery to you, Marco, and 2 other senior apprentices. It is the greatest responsibility you have ever been given. The painting is carefully wrapped in layers of soft wool and a final protective layer of thick, oiled canvas. It is surprisingly heavy. As you lift it, you are acutely aware that you are holding the culmination of countless hours of labor, a small fortune in pigments, and a very dangerous piece of political currency. You and the others form a protective box around the precious cargo as you begin the journey through the bustling streets of Milan to the Castello Sforzesco. The city is a chaotic symphony of sound and smell. The rumble of ironclad wheels on cobblestone, the shouts of merchants, the braying of a donkey, every sound makes you flinch. The familiar smells of baking bread, raw sewage, and damp wool feel coarse and loud compared to the silent, perfect object in your care. You walk with grim, focused faces, ignoring the jostling crowds, your world shrunk to the task of placing one foot carefully in front of the other. As you approach the Castello, the world begins to change. The sheer scale of the fortress is designed to intimidate, with its massive red brick walls, deep moat, and the stern, impassive faces of the guards who watch you approach. You are leaving your world of craft and labor and entering the rarefied atmosphere of absolute power. Once you are ushered through the main gates, the shift is absolute. The noise of the city is instantly muffled, replaced by a cathedral-like hush. The very air smells different. The sharp, honest scents of turpentine and linseed oil that cling to your clothes are overpowered by the cloying, sweet perfume of beeswax, used to polish the marble floors, and the spicy, ethereal drift of incense from a distant chapel. It is the smell of immense, ancient wealth. You feel like a ghost. Your simple woolen clothes are drab and rough compared to the shimmering silks and velvets of the courtiers who glide past you down the long corridors. They look at you, but not at you. Their eyes slide over you as if you are part of the furniture, a necessary but uninteresting piece of servant machinery. You are a specter from the world of grit and grime, haunting a palace of leisure and intrigue. The sounds are different, too. There are no shouts, only hushed, urgent whispers from clutches of secretaries and diplomats. The rustle of a silk gown, the soft tap of a lady's slipper on the floor, the distant, melancholy notes of a lute being played in a private chamber. These are the sounds of power. As you wait in a grand antechamber for someone to receive the painting, you overhear two men in fur-trimmed cloaks murmuring to each other. They are looking at your wrapped parcel. The ermine was a clever touch, one whispers, a symbol of her purity for public consumption, but also the Duke's own emblem. He marks her as his property for all to see. You realize with a jolt that the beautiful creature in the painting is not just a pet. It is a complex political symbol, a public declaration you had never even considered. After what feels like an eternity, a major domo with a bored, haughty expression finally deigns to acknowledge you. He inspects the package, signs a receipt, and has two of his own servants carry the painting away into the depths of the palace. You never even see the Duke. You are simply dismissed. The entire transaction highlights the immense gulf between the creator and the patron. The master, for all his genius, is still a servant to these powerful men. As you walk back out of the castle gates, back into the noise and the grime and the vibrant life of the city, you'll feel a strange mix of disillusionment and relief. You have seen the world that the master's art is built to serve. You have breathed its perfumed, suffocating air, and you are, for the first time, deeply grateful for the honest, uncomplicated smell of turpentine. Several months after you delivered the portrait of Cecilia Gallerani, the master is summoned once again to the Castello Sforzesco. This time, it is not to deliver a finished work, but to consult on the designs for a grand festival the Duke is planning. Leonardo, in his role as the court's premier creative consultant, is tasked with everything from designing the costumes to engineering spectacular stage machinery. He needs an assistant to carry his portfolio of drawings and to take notes. To your astonishment, he chooses you. The journey back to the court feels different this time. You are not a mere delivery boy, but a member of the master's retinue, and you are granted access to a part of the palace you have never seen before, the private ducal chambers. You stand in the corner of a magnificent hall, your arms laden with scrolls of parchment, trying to make yourself as small and invisible as possible. The air is thick with the scent of beeswax and the murmur of powerful men, and you watch a performance more astonishing than any stage play Leonardo could ever devise. You are watching your master. The Leonardo you know is a man of the workshop, a man whose default state is a deep introspective silence, whose hands are perpetually stained with paint and charcoal, whose hair is often a tangled mess forgotten in a flurry of inspiration. He is a man who mutters to himself, who can spend an entire day staring at a wall, and who seems more at home with his strange machines and cadavers than with living, breathing people. The man standing before the Duke Ludovico Sforza is a complete stranger. This Leonardo is immaculate. He wears a doublet of rose-colored velvet, a color he favors, which sets off his long, neatly combed hair and beard. He stands not with the stoop of a scholar, but with the easy, confident posture of a nobleman. He is not silent. He is a cascade of wit and charm. You listen, mesmerized, as he holds his own in conversation with the most powerful man in Milan. He discusses the latest political developments from Venice with a diplomat's insight. He argues a point of philosophy with a visiting scholar, and he tells a joke that makes the Duke himself laugh. A loud, booming sound that echoes in the high, frescoed ceiling. This is not your master. This is an entirely different man who happens to inhabit his body. The Duke, pleased, then makes a request. He asks Leonardo to play his silver lira da braccio, an instrument the master fashioned himself. Leonardo accepts with a graceful bow. You watch, stunned, as he plucks a melody from the air so sweet and so heartbreakingly beautiful that the entire court falls silent. The music is a perfect, shimmering thing, and you struggle to reconcile the image of this elegant musician with the man you saw by candlelight, his hands wrist-deep in the anatomy of a dead man. Later, to amuse the Duchess, Beatrice d'Este, who seems bored by the political talk, he takes a piece of parchment and, with a few quick, clever strokes, sketches a rebus, a visual riddle combining pictures and letters. The Duchess claps her hands in delight as she solves it. He is not just an artist. He is an entertainer, a polymath, a perfect courtier. You glance across the room and see Salai, who has somehow managed to follow the master into these private chambers. He is lounging near a tapestry, observing the scene with a knowing, unsurprised look on his face. He, it seems, has always known about this other Leonardo. He accepts both versions of the man without question. And you, Giovanni, are left to wonder, is this charm genuine, or is it a mask? A brilliant and necessary performance constructed for survival in this treacherous world of patronage. You look at the effortless grace, the sprezzatura that he exudes, and you are convinced it is a mask. A flawless one, but a mask nonetheless. You see the immense, exhausting effort it must take to be this charming, to be this on. You realize that this performance is what pays for the lapis lazuli, for the secret anatomical studies, for the freedom to pursue the wild, impossible ideas in his notebooks. As the meeting concludes, and you walk with the master down the long marble corridors, away from the Duke's presence, you witness the final, strangest transformation of the day. With each step that takes him further from the court and closer to the city, the mask begins to crumble. The charming smile fades from his lips. His shoulders begin to slump under the familiar weight of his own thoughts. The witty courtier dissolves, and your moody, silent, brilliant, and deeply familiar master returns. He does not speak a word to you on the entire walk back to the workshop, already lost in a world you can only guess at. You are back in the workshop. The scent of turpentine, once a sharp alien smell, is now the scent of home. It welcomes you back from the perfumed prison of the court. The master, cloaked once more in his familiar, comfortable silence, has retired. To his chambers, the energy of his public performance completely spent. The other apprentices are long asleep, their soft breathing a gentle tide in the quiet room. You are alone, and the master has given you one last task for the night, to clean his brushes. It's a simple, humble job, but tonight it feels like a sacred rite. You light a single candle, its small, steady flame, a stark contrast to the glittering chandeliers of the palace, and set to work. You take the first brush, its bristles stiff with a mixture of lead white and Naples yellow. You swirl it gently in a pot of linseed oil, watching as the thick paint dissolves, blooming into a milky cloud. Then you rinse it in the sharp, clean turpentine, and finally, wash it with a block of soap under cool water, working the last of the pigment from its core. You carefully reshape the bristles to a perfect point and lay it on a clean cloth to dry. You pick up the next brush, this one stained with the deep red of vermilion. As you clean it, you remember seeing the master use it to paint the sleeve of a saint, the color a bold declaration of faith and martyrdom. You clean a brush heavy with burnt umber, the color of shadows and earth, the color that gives form and weight to his figures. And finally, you take the smallest, finest brush, stained with the celestial impossible blue of the lapis lazuli you yourself ground months ago. With the brushes all clean and lying in a neat row, your work is done. You stand up, stretching your tired back, and your eyes fall upon the finished portrait of Cecilia Gallerani, which is back in the studio for a final coat of varnish. It rests on an easel in the center of the room, illuminated by the soft glow of your single candle. You walk towards it, drawn by an invisible thread. You look closely at a single, perfect brushstroke, the final luminous highlight on the ermine's fur. And in that one small mark, you see everything. You see the hours of your own labor, the rhythmic grinding that turned a blue stone into that specific pigment. You see the patient application of gesso on the panel beneath. You see the secret of sfumato in its soft, hazy edge, where it blends into the shadow. You see the forbidden knowledge of the dissection in the way the fur seems to lay over a real solid anatomy of muscle and bone. You see the brilliant, impossible dreams of the notebooks in the sheer confident genius it took to place the stroke in exactly the right spot. You see the pressure of the court, the politics of the Duke, the entire world of silk and whispers that made the painting necessary. You even see the ghost of Salai's enigmatic smile, the source of the master's endless study of captivating expressions. You realize that a brushstroke is not a line of paint. It is a vessel. It is a testament. It contains the labor, the secrets, the ambition, the love, and the strange, chaotic beauty of the entire world that created it. You look at an unfinished panel leaning against the far wall, a ghostly sketch of the adoration of the Magi, which the master abandoned years ago. You understand now that the same impossible weight of knowledge and feeling that makes one brushstroke perfect is also what makes finishing a painting so difficult. The quest for perfection is a heavy burden. You finally understand the paradox of the master. The scientist, the inventor, the musician, the courtier, they are not separate people. They are all here, concentrated in this single, silent stroke of paint. You look at your own hands, forever stained by the pigments of the workshop. You feel a quiet, profound sense of peace. You were not the genius, but you were his witness. You were the keeper of his brushes, the preparer of his canvases, the silent guardian of his secrets. And that, you realize, was more than enough. And so, your time in the workshop comes to a gentle close. The last brush is clean, resting now, its purpose fulfilled for the day. The single candle flame dances softly, casting long, sleepy shadows that soften all the hard edges of the room. You can feel the quiet of the late hour settling deep into your bones, a comfortable, heavy blanket of peace. The distant sounds of the city have faded to a faint, distant murmur, the sound of a world that is finally, mercifully, at rest. You can feel the cool, clean sheets of your own cot calling to you now. The straw mattress, which once seemed so rough, now feels like the most welcoming place on earth. You can imagine sinking into it, the day's labor and its many revelations dissolving as you drift away. There are no more panels to prepare, no more pigments to grind, no more secrets to uncover tonight. There is only this deep, profound quiet and the well-earned promise of rest. The faint scent of turpentine and linseed oil is no longer a call to work, but a gentle, familiar lullaby, the perfume of a life of purpose, of being a small but essential part of something beautiful and timeless. Let the rhythmic breathing of the other sleeping apprentices guide your own, a soft breath in and a long, slow breath out. Feel the tension leave your shoulders, your arms, your hands. You have done good work. You have been a witness to genius, and now your watch is over for the night. All that is left is to surrender to the gentle pull of sleep, to let the darkness be a soft, warm cloak. You are safe here, in this quiet corner of history, where every detail is soft and every sound is soothing. You are a part of this story, and now the story is tucking you into bed, wishing you the sweetest of dreams. Rest now. You are home. You've reached the end of another cozy nappy tale. Sleep well, and remember, you're always welcome here. Sweet dreams, nappy friend.